Hello, I'm Hernan and welcome to the 3D Color Factory Lesson 4 on multicolor printing using support blockers in Cura and printing an Ender 3 from Creality. In this lesson, we'll do a remix of the model that we worked on in the last video. Before we get into the lesson, let's do a quick review of the support blocker technique that we have been working on. When we look at the nameplate, we see 5 different sections that we may want to print in different colors. The backplate, the bottom section of the flower, the center piece of the flower, the text, and the frame. What we did by creating all those erasers was to gain control of what we wanted to print each time. So we just had to simply move an eraser higher, exposing the part or parts that we wanted printed, and created the G-code for that specific print. Then we'll put the eraser back to its blocking position and move the eraser of the next part that we wanted to print. And don't forget that we also had to move the models to create the interference to promote adhesion between the backplate and the upper sections. The final step for printing was the minor edits to the G-codes to keep the bed hot and to avoid crashes. Let's get started with this lesson. I showed this nameplate to my Aunt Claire, and she really liked it and asked me if I could make one for her just like it but with a few minor changes. Instead of saying Jane's room, she wants it to say gardening tools with no holes. I guess she's going to glue it to the closet where she keeps her gardening tools. For colors, she wants the nameplate to be red, including the frame. The flower, she wants the petals pink with an orange or yellow center, and the text white. So what do we do if we don't have the original design to make the changes? Let's see if we can make it with what we have. We have the model of the nameplate with the flower from the last lesson. We learned how to block the text from the original nameplate. We even have some G-codes already from the previous print. So we only need to find a way to get the new text, gardening tools, onto the nameplate. And if the frame and backplate are of the same color, why don't we print it as a single piece? Let's start by opening the 3D modeling software. I use Fusion, but Tinkercad works just fine for this. Let's create a rectangle that is 30 millimeters by 70 millimeters and make it 2 millimeters thick. On the rectangle, insert the text gardening tools in 2 lines. Pick a font and a size that you like. For this I chose the font Lucida Calligraphy at height 10 millimeters. The size is not as important because we can adjust it in Cura. What is important is that the line spacing looks good and that the bottom line is centered with the top line. Make the text 2 millimeters tall. Save your design and export it as an STL. Now we open Cura and load the nameplate model from the last lesson. Once it loads, also load the gardening tools STL. We're not printing here the nameplate model, but we're using it as a guide to place the gardening tools text on the build plate. Select the gardening tools model and move it on top of the nameplate and align it with the text. I think it is centered, but there is room to increase its size a little bit. Select a scale and make sure uniform scaling is selected. Increase the size until it looks right and move it if necessary. That looks just about right. Now, uncheck uniform scaling and make Z4 to get back to the correct height. On move, confirm that Z is 0. We run the slicer to see if it is in the correct place. Yes, it looks like it is centered. Now select the nameplate model and delete it. We're left only with the gardening tools model, and it is at the correct location on the build plate. Now we can make the big eraser and block the back plate. We're going to print this text onto the nameplate, so we have to lower the model 0.2 millimeters, just like last time. Let's slice it, and you should see only 10 layers. Save the G-code to the SD card and rename it Gardening Tools. Clear the build plate and load the project from the previous lesson. We're only going to generate the G-code for the backplate with the frame. So let's move the models to their original heights. Unfortunately, Cura renames the objects, so we'll have to go one by one to see what each model is before we can move it to the correct height. Find the backplate and move it to Z0. Find the big eraser and move it to Z80 to get it out of the way. Find the frame eraser and move it to Z90. Find the cylinder erasers and move them to Z100. Find the eraser for the text and move it to Z2. Find the eraser for the flower and move it to Z2. Let's slide it and see that only the back plate with the frame is printing with 25 layers. Save it to the SD card and rename it back plate. Now we're ready for the G-code. Let's open in Notepad the G-code for the backplate that we just saved. We only need to add the semicolon to the M140 instructions to keep the bed hot between prints. Open in Notepad G-code 2 flower from the last lesson. The only change we need to make to this G-code is to increase the height to avoid the crashing with the frame that wasn't there last time. The frame height is 5 millimeters. So let's change the Z4 for C7 to be sure that we have plenty of room to avoid the crash. Let's do the same change to G-code 3 center. Now we edit the G-code for the gardening tools text and add the crash avoidance instructions with a Z7. We don't do anything with the M140 because this is the last print. Excellent. We're done editing G-codes. Let's print them. The first print of the backplate with the frame looks okay. Let's see if we can go over the frame and down to print the flower without crashing. It worked. This opens up a whole new set of ideas for future projects. Now let's print the center of the flower. And for the final print, let's see if it prints the gardening tools text. Well, it came out very nice. You know, the color combination looks better than I expected. I'm sure my Aunt Claire is going to be pleased. In the description of this video, you will find a link to Thingiverse where you can download the models that we use in this lesson. I hope you enjoyed these lessons as much as I did. For this lesson, we mixed models and G-codes from different projects. We also modified the G-codes, and the end result was a very nice print. In the next lessons, we will continue exploring new ways to improve our 3D color printing experience. But until then, thank you for watching and have a great day.